A portion of the mighty mother comes into the soul of Savitri. Her yogic journey proceeds further. At every step, she gets the divine command, the divine guidance, how to proceed further. Rather, in her case, at present, how to go deeper and deeper into her soul. She is given the instructions that the search, her yogic search, is not for herself. She doesn't need it. She already has that. Her search is for man, for the soul of man, for the collective here upon earth. But she has to go to the entire human process. She has to be one with man in order to guide, in order to help man. Unless the divine becomes man, takes a human shape, man will not be in a position to follow him. Therefore, Savitri accepts the full burden, the full implication, the full load of humanity, the mortal load, and proceeds in her yogic journey. She is told very clearly that she must accept darkness to lead man to light. She must accept his sorrow to lead him to bliss. Not only do that, she must, in matter's body, find her heaven-born soul. She must find in the body of matter, in the physical, her heaven-born soul. So the crucial content of Savitri's yoga, the entire thrust of her yoga is to find in matter's body the divine soul. It is not that you have to free yourself from matter, get out of matter and ignorance, and release the soul and go elsewhere in the immortal world. That may be all right for certain kind of spiritual seekers, but not for Savitri. She has to discover God Himself in matter. She has to establish God in matter. Therefore, in matter's body, she must find her soul, not elsewhere, not in the vital, not in the mental, not in the spiritual, not in heaven, but in the body or the physical body itself, she must find her soul. So it's a very distinct injunction to her, and she has to get ready to proceed along those lines. The first thing which Savitri has to do is to go deeper below the dream consciousness, below surface consciousness. She has already crossed. She has entered into the dream consciousness. She has to enter into the subliminal, down below in the subconscious, and below, if necessary, to find out what is the reality of that whole existence. Then Savitri surges out of her body's wall. The moment she gets the Adesh, she pushes herself forward and out of her body's wall and stood a little span outside herself. Her physical is standing here, and she has come out of her body and standing a little away from her body. It is possible for you to go out of the body and move around. The body may be lying there on the floor, but you can move. The spirit can move around in the room, up and down it can go and do whatever it wants also. So Savitri here has stepped out of her physical body. Then Savitri surged out of her body's wall and stood a little span outside herself and looked into her subtle being's depths, and in his heart, as in a lotus bud, divined her secret and mysterious soul. In the heart's well, she is looking deep to find out her soul, divine her secret self. Divine is a verb here in the sense that you as if find out under the ground where the water is called a diviner. So Savitri is going under the ground to find out where the lotus bud, the pool, the tank, the lake of her soul would be, and looked into her subtle body's being depths, and in his heart, as in a lotus bud, her heart is a lotus bud itself, and it is there she is divining her secret and mysterious soul. Well, she is very clear what to do. She is stepping now into the depth where would reside her soul. But the entry into that depth, into that cave below the ground, is not an easy entry. There are powers of the vital nature waiting there to stop, guarding there the gates, that no intruder can step in. So Savitri has to face them. At the mouth of the cave, there is a fierce lion sitting, and he will not allow you to enter into the cave. He will be sort of guarding something behind the cave. In the dim portal of the inner life that bars out from our depths, the body's mind, so body's mind cannot enter into that, bars out the body's mind and all that lives, but by the body's breath she knocked and pressed against the ebony gate. The gate is there, and she has to crash through the gate and enter into the cave. Ebony gate, hard, difficult to cross. That kind of a gate is there, and she has to force her way through it. She knocked because there is a guardian power behind it. There is a guardian sitting behind the gate, and he will not open the gate easily. So Savitri has to push it through. The living portal, her knock is so powerful that the portal, the gate, with sullen hinge opens. It grumbles. It is not accepting what Savitri is doing. It will stop her to go. The living portal groaned with sullen hinge. Heavily reluctant, it complained inert against the tyranny of the Spirit's touch. The gate itself is complaining that somebody has knocked on it. It would not accept easily. Somebody is challenging him, and therefore, heavily reluctant, it complained inert, helplessly, against the tyranny of the Spirit's touch. Spirits, because Savitri has stepped out from her physical body. It is a spirit now, not locked in the body, but free, which is knocking on the ebony gate. And the ebony gate is not happy that somebody is trying to crash through. See? The living portal groaned with sullen hinge, heavily reluctant, it complained inert against the tyranny of the spirit's touch. So you can imagine how powerful that knock of Savitri must have been on the thick, heavy door itself. In some pictures, we have the cave sealed with a big rock, but here it is a gate, and it is through the gate that she has to open. In the Mahabharata, in the Ramayana, we know how Vali had gone into the cave and how the entrance to the cave was blocked, closed by means of a huge rock. So that is the occult picture which we have in other places. But here Savitri is seeing a closed gate, and she has to make an entrance to that gate. A formless voice cried from within. A formidable voice cried from within. It will not allow anybody to intrude in. And it is challenging, it is threatening anyone who would try to open the gate. Back, creature of earth, lest tortured and torn thou die. Don't dare to enter into this cave. Don't be bold to put your step into this cave. You will be tortured, you will be torn to pieces, and you will die. Such is the fearful picture this voice is presenting to Savitri's spirit. But Savitri, of course, wouldn't care. The mother was taking lessons in occultism from Theo in Algeria, and she could go to the extreme ends of this creation in her occult body. She could step out of her body, body after body, out of 12 bodies, and be free. She says, if you want to really do occultism, you must not have any fear at all in you. You should be totally free of fear, absolutely free of fear. Now, only those who have that fearlessness can enter to cross such gates, can enter into the cave. Rare are such souls, rare such beings. The mother had offered to Pranab whether he would like to learn occultism. She knew that he is a fearless man and he could do whatever she would tell. But he says, no, I'm not interested in that. It was his very clear, immediate response. You see. In fact, nobody had come forward to learn occultism from the mother. Perhaps that was not necessary also on the yogic path. That is not necessary on the yogic path given by Shyavendu and the mother. It is a different path. But that does not mean that when one is making real inner progress, one will not meet these difficulties, these challenges. Fearlessness is always necessary. And that is what is meant by the Aryan spirit, the spirit of the hero who is there to fight any kind of battle, the occult battle also, of course. So she is told, back, creature of earth, lest tortured and torn thou die. Savitri doesn't care. But what does she see there? She sees a dreadful murmur rose like a dim sea. The moment that voice says, get back, go away from here, don't dare to enter into this cave. What does she see there? She sees a dreadful murmur rose. She hears sound. Murmur rose like a dim sea. The serpent of the threshold, hissing, rose. The fatal guardianhood with monstrous coils, the hounds of darkness growled with jaws agape, and trolls and gnomes and goblins scowled and stared, and wild beasts roaring thrilled the blood with fear, and Minas muttered in a dangerous tongue. So this is the picture of the subconscious, very frightful, all vital powers, fierce vital powers, standing now in front of Savitri, who is daring to enter into the cave. A small creature will simply run away from that place, but of course not Savitri. Savitri has to face them all. Now here, a serpent of the threshold hissing rose. The serpent of the threshold is known to the occultist, those who go into the inner depths, into the subconscious and down below. They are sort of familiar with the serpent of the threshold. He is also called the dweller of the threshold. The dweller of the threshold. He is the guardian of the threshold. He will not allow anyone to enter. Sometimes it has 5 heads, sometimes 7 heads. It can have a number of heads like that. And very furious, it can bite anyone who is trying to enter and kill him. It is he, the serpent, who is guarding the threshold. It is a veil of what is called Parokit, veil of Parokit, and he will not allow any word to enter. What is the veil of Parokit? It is that which keeps earth and man away from this domain, from this region. It will not allow. It is a veil between man and earth. Now, it is known to some of these occultists, some of the hermeneutics, the Kabbalah practitioners, how these evil spirits, the great powers of the vital being, evil or powerful, whatever you want to call them, are present there in the subconscious. They are sort of familiar with them, and they also say that these powers, the serpent or the beings of that world, be behind what there may be. Don't step here. Be behind what there may be. It is I who raised the veil. That is what the serpent or the threshold would say. It is I who escaped this threshold. Now, we have also here fatal guardianhood with monstrous coils, as he says here. Then we have got hounds of darkness, the dogs of night, the shadow dogs, hounds of shadow. These are the ferocious dogs at the gate who will not allow an intruder to step into that house. Sometimes they have got 3 heads, very frightening kind of a creature, very strong, very powerful. It will chase you out from the place. The hounds of darkness. Now, one of the tasks which Hercules had to do, he was given 12 labors, and the last labor of Hercules was to bring from the underworld the dog named Cerberus, the Greek dog. Nobody would dare to approach him. It was very strong, very powerful, very fierce, with biting teeth. Nobody would dare approach him. But Hercules managed, put it on his shoulder and took it away. Now, such are the ferocious creatures. They are sitting in the underworld, subliminal. In fact, this is a domain which in a certain sense we can call as Dominicus Liminis, the Lord of the Threshold.